easiest way to get into the
Wholeness and welcome. This is Josh Dippold from Integrating Presence. Today I'm here with Lisa Frey in Fat Cat Longevity, a space that she so kindly allows me to facilitate and host meditations and now meditation circles. And I thought it's high past time, since I've been doing events with her for so long, that we sit down and have a little chit chat. So here we are, and welcome, Lisa. How's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. Hey, so I thought we would just bring people up to speed on, who you are, kind of what you're interested in, and then just how this space came to be.
Okay. So I am a teacher, and I've taught like all different grade levels, all different subject matters, just really like to teach. And I love to read, research, and I guess probably about 17 years ago, I read a book called More Natural Cures, and it talked about natural cures, and I got really into just like natural health and preventative medicine, and mainly just reading a lot about it, and started putting some things into play, and have just continued researching that, just kind of thinking of longevity, just doing the little things we can do not to get the normal aches and pains as we get older and stuff like that. And then after several years, actually this would have just been maybe 2 years ago, 2019, I had looked online before this about you'd hear the life coaches, and that wasn't my interest, but like a health coach, like for dieting or weight loss or natural health cures. And I didn't find anything when I first looked, and a few months later, it was like all over the place. So I enrolled in an online program and became a certified health coach and life coach. And I mainly focused on the health, again, because that's what I had been reading about. And then in working with clients, what I found is that any type of health coaching or habit change is life coaching as well, because we can have the best ideas, the best, intentions consciously, but if our subconscious runs 90 to 95% of our day, those things aren't really going to stay very long or stick until we dig in a little deeper. And so then I kind of just blended the two, or got more comfortable if somebody came in with just more of a life coaching issue rather than health. Got comfortable into that.
Yeah, they're so intertwined, aren't they? I know the first time I remember walking in here, another friend had this space beforehand, and I helped her move and transition out of the space and help, transition Lisa a little bit in here, but came in one time and we just started talking about different health things. And since I'm into kind of natural health and good diet, especially for self-care, we talked about, I think we pulled out some books and we looked through certain books and talked about all kinds of different health ideas, and a lot of them kind of the ones that kind of fly under the radar that we both found kind of important of what ought to be possibly paid more attention to. And so also, obviously, Lisa mentioned the we have, it's not just the diet, it's closely intertwined and interwoven with the psychological side, the motivational side, the support side, right, the caring side. And this is where meditation, I feel, comes in so much, because it allows us to kind of see and notice things that we wouldn't otherwise see and notice a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
And then not only, it's not just somebody else telling us, we can actually see and feel and know it for ourselves. And so when we have that kind of empowerment, it kind of, it seems, in my experience anyway, more important of, how are my habits affecting me, and how can I change these habits? And a whole space opens up for, I guess, more healthy choices.
And while you were talking, I was thinking, I kind of came to this, I guess you'd say, from the logical or book side, reading a lot about it. And then you mentioned, how did I end up in this space? It was during COVID shutdown. It was like right after that first 5 weeks. And I decided I needed energy work, and just kind of out of the blue. And I am a trained massage therapist from years past, and so I wanted energy work, but I had these knots in my shoulders, and I was like, well, wait a minute, should I do that or a massage? But I ended up here at Mary's House of Healing upstairs at Lunar Healing, and had an appointment with Adriana, and it was just amazing. And then again, with COVID, we were going to be teaching virtually, and my children are grown, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to spend this next piece of time, still at home? So I came down to Main Street just kind of check out. I had retirement a few years down the road, check things out, and it turned out there was a space in this building. And it was in the basement. I was like, oh, I don't know. But I wanted to check it out. And the moment I walked in, the energy in this space, I was just like, I have to do this now, even if I have a full-time job. And just this place is amazing. And so with the previous business that was in here, they were conducting the meditations on Wednesday night, which you were leading. And so I just started attending those, and I knew it would take a while to build up business here, and I wanted the space to be in use. And with that, I just got a lot more in tune to meditation, energy. I was already playing the singing bowls at home, but then integrated them into meditations, and just became really more aware of the energetic side. So just kind of, again, more things intertwined.
Yes, indeed. And I've been to Lisa's singing bowl class, and she's got a very nice set and array of bowls. And the experiences I've had at that it's pretty amazing. I get this stereoscopic sound, is what I call it, where the bowl sound will go around the room like a radar, or it will just go in a circle, and so the sound goes from one ear then to behind the head and to the left ear and to the front, and continues like that for a while until the pattern changes. And it's pretty. That's just one of the few amazing things about it. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to say, clients have said too, and you can help me out because I hear people pronounce chakra or chakra, and I don't know.
Either way, I think
Yeah.
I hear it more chakras. Yeah.
Chakras. So, I have this set of singing bowls that matches the chakras, and then what I've heard clients say is, depending on the time and probably their energy, they feel it in their body in different places. They might have a tingling in their fingertips. I know myself, I'll have I'll feel something in my stomach a lot of times. And so the vibration really, is pretty amazing. And that is one reason that I've never really recorded here doing that, because I don't feel like a recording does the singing bowls justice.
That's right. You would have to have an audio engineer with all kinds of different mics, and you would have to, to get the absolute high quality, you'd have to plan it all out exactly what you're going to do. Then he would have to place the mics, and you'd probably have to go through 3 or 4 takes. And yeah, it would just be easier to invite people to come experience it for themselves. Yeah. And so we have other people leading meditations here. I know I've done an interview with Christy Geltz. She does, we on a rotating schedule, and she does meditations on Wednesday. Occasionally Sarah, who I've also done podcasts with, she's done meditations here on Wednesdays. And then Christy and Heather, even from Peace, Love, Happy, the metaphysical shop and crystal shop upstairs, she's in the past has been in the rotating schedule too. So how about working with clients? So maybe you can share some stories about some folks who've come in here and what they've experienced and what they've said, and and how you worked with them.
Okay. So one of my first clients, her goal was actually weight loss. And so we had a 12-week of sessions set up. And so she lost weight. She lost 30 pounds in the 12 weeks, and she has kept it off now for a year and a half, stronger all the time. But what was interesting is just getting into, the life things and that the programming that we have had from a young age, even though her and I were originally focused on, weight loss, it turned into more. So, and even with that, say weight loss is a goal. My goal is to get to know the client and their likes, their dislikes, their habits, things like that. So it's not a eat this, don't eat that. It's more about what things do you enjoy and celebrate, and how can you make healthier choices. But again, what we dug into was that habits in that area were also habits in other areas where there might be, I guess in a way, binge and purge of, not literally, but just of the activities, how much time is spent on social media, how much time is productive, how much time is spent on self-care. I would say that is the number one thing. And that was a great thing about that client was, as she began to turn her focus inward, and again, she just did it in a way for physical reasons, but she began to feel so good that all other areas in her life, whether it be, in a relationship, in a job, in anything, they just started coming together. And then at one point, she was doing kind of random acts of kindness, and she told me, she said, I'm just so full of love, I can't stop myself from doing it. And she's a very truly happy and amazing person. And so that all kind of came from digging into, again, the programming that we have. And so we have these actions that maybe, daily actions or whatever, or thoughts or patterns of thoughts, whether they be positive or negative, whether we are, I guess, being nice to ourselves or critical self-talk, and then that kind of spirals. And so with her self-care and just being very intentional, her cup just began to get fuller and fuller in all areas.
Isn't that amazing how sometimes we don't see that, and it just takes a little nudge, or someone like a hero who's already been through that and come out the other side and it can share what they've learned and share empowerment and encouragement. And then I like this word heuristics. It's kind of like giving folks kind of like a tool set and a space and a means and sometimes methods to actually see and discover that for themselves. And when they really can see and know it for themselves, I think that's when it makes a big difference.
And it's like self-awareness without judgment. Self-awareness is what's being brought out, and then the lack of judgment is very important. And I did want to share, we've done a couple of Amber Quintus, who is the therapist that works here, we've done a couple of inner child workshops, and I won't go into detail about what came out, but they were just amazing. And during the channel journaling, where we're just kind of in a meditative state yet journaling, some powerful things have come out. And from one person in attendance is a friend of mine, and so she was kind of maybe more skeptical and maybe hear more from me, and just the stuff that came out from her journaling. She contacts me now all the time, and we talk about it, and just powerful things that were brought to the surface about the way they act, about the way a person acts now, and going back and seeing where that became programmed, and that it wasn't ever a true story, and so kind of reprogramming that.
It's so amazing how the mind works and all the things involved in that. And That's right. It's called television programming, right? And that's just one of the things. We've got society and we've got schooling, we've got our parents and upbringing, we've got our social circles, and it just goes on and on and on, right? And media and culture. So yeah, and it's another synchronicity too is with the inner child work. If anybody listened to the podcast with Sean White about the state of the massage industry, the gal who was present in there, she does breath work, but she focuses on the rebirthing breath work, which I'm not really that familiar with, and she didn't actually speak on the podcast. So if there is a part two with the Sean White and she's there, that's another potential. But yeah, that's really cool. And now, is she doing any more of these rebirthing or this inner child work?
We don't have one scheduled right now, but I'm assuming we will, because we actually had some of the participants that came to the first one wanted to come back to the second one. So I could see maybe around the Christmas holidays, we may skip December, but I could see them being at least monthly, because I think we have the clientele for that would enjoy that. And I will speak also to my personal, I guess, journey with inner child work. And I don't know if this is because of my age, but I was kind of resistant to, I don't have childhood trauma, whatever, and just trying to be, I don't know, I guess tough, and thinking, hey, my parents did the best they could and whatever. And I had a great life. But what was interesting in getting into it is that everyone has childhood trauma, and that what would be traumatic to us as adults is very, very different than what would be traumatic to us as a child. And I would say the biggest thing in all of the work that I've been doing is that it needs to be a lack of judgment. A lot of people don't want to dig into childhood trauma because they might think that's blaming a loved one. But an example that I would think of would be, imagine that, you're a toddler and you have an animal at home and you just get to waller, with that animal all the time. And then you go out with mom for a walk and you start to toddle up to, a strange dog, and your mom yells at you, Josh, no. And for a 2-year-old, that would be traumatizing and can shift things or make you think you're wrong or bad or whatever. When, we look at that and would think that was your mom, keeping you safe, but we would take it as a 2-year-old in a different way. So for me, that's a good example to realize everybody, even with the most wonderful, well-meaning parents in the world, and upbringing, has childhood trauma and has programming.
That's such an important point because, if we look at that from an adult perspective, it's like, oh, that's no big deal. But if we put ourselves back in the shoes of our 2-year-old selves, it's a completely different story. And I guess if we can actually relive some of these memories from childhood, it's a completely different emotional response than we would have from looking at it from the lens of an adult, right? Yeah. And so, no one gets through this life without some kind of trauma. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a huge, big deal, but that doesn't mean that it could be labeled trauma. Because you think about, a 2-year-old, they don't have any reference point for that kind of danger, right? And I'm not saying they shouldn't be taught that that's a thing that they might need to stay away from because it's harm, but it's like, how does the parent do that, right? And this is why, and that's another definition of mindfulness is, being self-aware without judgment. So this is not to blame or shame or guilt parents. It's just to bring more consciousness and saying, these what we think are maybe kind of insignificant choices actually have a huge impact. And I know it's easy for me to say that I'm not a parent, right? So it's a lot easier for me to say. But the more conscious we can be, the better. I mean, the better our lives I feel will be, and the better lives of our children and those we care for as well. And knowing at the same time that that we have to give ourselves self-care too, because sometimes adults and caretakers are overwhelmed where they just don't have the capacity for such a conscious response, right? And again, this all goes back to self-care and meditation, where in that healing, where we have more access to consciousness and more space and time for response, and just more ability to see and know how our choices and our actions and our responses affect not only us but the world around us and everyone we come in contact with. So although it can seem like a lot of responsibility, it can also become very empowering as well.
And I had two other thoughts as well. And one is that, with childhood trauma, to this day, I don't have any, visions that come up that tell me specifically where, it was. But through energy work, you can release things without having to, talk it out, bring it up, drum up repressed memories. With energy work, it can be done. With breathing and meditation and slowing yourself down, it can be done where, you might release trapped emotions that you never even know. So it doesn't have to be harmful. And then a second thing that might be off topic a little bit, but bringing in the non-judgment part, to take care of our energy. One of the subjects that I researched a lot and did some videos on was narcissism, and we called it 50 Shades of Narcissism because, again, there can be a judgment. You don't want to label someone a narcissist, but the truth is there are certain tactics that are manipulative tactics that some people use more than others, and we all use them to some extent, but just learning the tactics and being able to, name the tactic. You're not labeling a person, but you can, once you know them, you can kind of set up your boundaries. And I feel like with narcissistic, manipulation tactics, they're basically an assault on your energy more so than, not physically or whatever. It would be an attack on your energy, so it can be subtle. And it can leave people thinking that they're crazy at times. So anyway, that's just something to also, we can study things, we can learn about things, but that doesn't mean we're pointing a finger at the people in our lives. We're just becoming more aware, and then we begin setting up our own boundaries, and then that is self-care in itself.
Absolutely. And going back to the childhood thing about... And that crossed my mind when you were talking earlier about, we don't actually have to have those relived experiences, right? And in fact, sometimes if we go digging too far, I know in my experience when I first started meditating, all these memories just started coming up from the past, and I just had to know more. So I would dig into those and question, and I just had to know things, and then other things like, well, if this is coming up and I miss this, then what's this? And it just kept going like a domino effect. And, some of it was more beneficial than others, but I totally agree with Lisa that that's really unnecessary and can be kind of like a wasted rabbit hole, when in fact, just a natural, simple meditation process like staying with your breath, and so where the body can become more easeful and relaxed, then things just, I don't know how it happens, but just kind of the healing starts happening. The body gets relaxed, and things, people talk about cellular memory or cellular memories and debris being cleared out, and it just happens. Some things just become released, there becomes openings, things come up and clear without us really having to be involved. All we have to do is kind of get out of the way of our body's natural healing process, and it's cool to know things about it, and it's, and see what happens, and maybe know more other levels of how it happens, but I don't feel that's completely necessary, right?
Well, and also, this is just a thought that came up while you were talking, but if you think about, any situation, we take it in our view through our perspective. So if we're digging up a memory, That's the memory from our perspective. So then when you kind of like scan out or you use principles of like radical forgiveness, then things might look different. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that there's very much to be said for clearing energy without having to necessarily bring up memories.
Yes, and you just when that event happened to us so long ago, are we the same person now as we were then? Probably not. Has our perceptions changed? Probably. And then now going spiraling back or through the psychological manipulation and the narcissism and the gaslighting. All these different techniques. They have gotten a lot of, I guess, more attention in the alternative media, but I think for fairly decent reasons. This doesn't necessarily mean that everybody we encounter is a narcissist. Not at all. No, it's just, and it doesn't have to be personal really either. This is just kind of like an energy pattern, or these kind of cycles, or kind of just energetic forces at play. I mean, we don't have to personalize it necessarily, right? This is just kind of, well, this is what the habit pattern, or training of narcissism is, right?
Yeah, and one thing that I'm thinking is, just how we talk about the subconscious and the conscious mind. A lot of these actions, when we make manipulative actions, they can be subconscious, because what does our subconscious mind do? It keeps us doing things that have allowed us to survive. So if we've used manipulative tactics and they've worked, we can subconsciously begin using them again, without being aware we might be overstepping our bounds. I'm putting myself in the perspective like then of someone who used them, but then that goes also for someone who is. That's why it's so important for us to be aware of like what the tactics are and be able to put up boundaries, so that it doesn't mean that someone else is a bad person, but it means they've been able to use that tactic in the past and they've been successful with it, and so they're subconsciously going to use it again.
Absolutely. And the one thing I've heard about deception, and I've seen it, seems fairly accurate in my experience, is that when deception is used, it's usually used for two reasons. One, as a defense mechanism, because if they wouldn't deceive, if they were completely open to begin with, then they might open themselves up to get hurt, right? And then the other one would be as kind of revenge. So being deceptive as kind of getting back at someone. And so, yeah, this is right. This is not saying that, to amplify fear, or be in a fear state and completely distance ourselves from other people. No, not at all. Not at all. This is about learning that these things do exist, and that boundaries are necessary, and they don't have to be there all the time. We just establish what's needed at the time, because we talk about loving our own hearts and loving what arises, but the exception to that is abuse. So if someone's in an abusive situation, that's the exception. You have to get out of that situation as soon as possible and establish healthy boundaries. And sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do is establish and maintain firm boundaries and send that compassion from a place of safety, where there doesn't have to be any interaction, right? And especially compassion for ourselves.
Yeah, one thought that I had is a quote, and it was, "Every action is an act of love or a cry for love." So when we can think about actions that way, that can kind of give us a different perspective of it. And then I had a second thought that I wanted to share. Let me think for a second.
Maybe it'll come back. Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's so such a healthy perspective, I feel, because that way we don't spiral down into negativity, right? Because those actions are a cry for love, right? They're doing, a lot of times they're doing what they've what's been done to them, and they don't know, and there's not another way that's known, right? So they are crying out for love.
So the second thought that I had, and this would be for people who are fairly empathetic, would be to, you enjoy giving and doing for others because, you can obviously put yourselves in their shoes, but to give until you feel resentment. And that's would be another boundary. But I know myself in particular, there would be times where I would do, and then find myself feeling resentful. Well, I had no reason to resent any other person because it was my lack of boundaries or saying yes to too many things that brought that on. So if you're a person who is, very kind and do for others, that might be a simple tool for you to think, to do until you feel resentment, and then to slow down and take care of
This
yourself.
is an important point, especially for the feminine, right? Is that they give and give and give, and just so conditioned to take care of others, and that's such a beautiful, noble thing. A lot of times they forget, the feminine forgets to care for itself, though, right?
Yeah.
And so and then when there's this kind of nagging thing of, well, I'm putting out too much, I don't have enough time for myself, I'm not getting anything in return. I mean, that seems to be a very common thing, and I guess one thing that can help teach us our feminine side is to be assertive when we need to, right? And especially even if we're not interacting with anybody, is to set those boundaries and to take time off for self-care. And if anybody's worth their salt, they're going to understand that, oh, hey, I'm sorry, I just can't, I've been, whatever you say to them, it doesn't really have to be perfect at all. But if maybe Lisa will have some good examples of what you can say, but I would say whatever you say or don't say, if the person's worth their salt and they're worth being around and helping and being friends or clients or whatever, they will understand. And if they don't, well, then that's I would say then we can learn from that too, and that's meant to be as well.
I do have a point there.
Sure.
When you said of what to say. I don't have a specific example, but I do notice this, and it's really easy for me to see also in the classroom, is when you first begin to maybe say no to something that you would have said yes to before, or take on a task or put those boundaries up. If there are, if there's an imbalance, there in the serving, and you put those boundaries into place, they're going to become, if there's manipulative tactics or whatever, they're going to become more apparent.
Yes.
Right? So originally you're kind of questioning especially if there's any gaslighting going on. Wait a minute, am I wrong here? But then when you go ahead and set some boundaries up, then if someone is trying to, take advantage of you in any way, then it becomes more apparent. So then it's a little bit easier as you become more aware of it. It becomes easier to say no. And then also the second part of that is the better you feel with taking care of yourself and only doing what you feel, fits in with your self-care regimen. As you're feeling better, it also becomes easier to say no.
And absolutely, yeah. Because the more we care for ourselves, the more we're able to help others too. And I think self-honesty is really key here too, because when we're more honest with ourselves, then we can be more honest with others, right? And and we can just throw it out there with them and say, to the degree we're able to be open and honest, right? And to just kind of find out maybe with more certainty of what may or may not be going on. And then another thing is we don't have to really make it personal either. We can share our feelings. We can say, okay, in such and such a situation, I'm feeling this way, right? And so that can't be argued with when we express our feelings too, right?
Perfect point.
And most
because
people
feelings
pick up
don't
on
lie.
that. Yep.
And when you word it as, I'm feeling this way, it's not pointing a finger, and it doesn't make another person wrong. It just means right now that's what you're feeling, and you're not wanting to feel that or whatever. You're wanting to.
Yeah, and it shows, it expresses honesty. It's something that can't be argued or really changed or manipulated. And if the other person does try to do that, well, then it becomes really apparent right away, right?
Right.
And then we can also judge what their response is going to be for us sharing our feelings, right? And that will give us kind of a better indicator of maybe what might be some more of their true intentions or motivations, as well as how they respond to us sharing our feelings too, like that.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done, because a lot of times that method or that way of emoting and expressing and interacting in the world doesn't happen as much, right? Because we're kind of, a lot of times we're just kind of entangled in the drama, because there is that draw and that emotional attraction to that, all the different things that surround drama, right?
And there's that same programming. If you're the person who says yes to everything and you do for others, there's that programming that's what you're used to. And so as you are subtly changing that, your energy is shifting. And, change in energy can be a good thing, but still leave you feeling a little off balance, because it's shifting. And it may be, for the better, but it's still...
it can be off-putting, unsettling, ungrounding, kind of. There might not be clarity to it. There can be confusion, right, and disorientation. Mm-hmm. So again, that's when those healing processes happen. That's when we could just take more time for self-care and integrate those the new energy that's coming in and the old energy that's going out, right? And I love this narcissist thing, just on a kind of a microcosmic level and an interpersonal level. It can also be kind of expanded and shown through wider society too. And
oh my gosh,
it
is all over the place right now.
Yeah, that we probably ought maybe leave that for now. But it's interesting how they can kind of relate, and you learn on one level and how it relates to another. Yeah, and then also there's now a psychologist that works in this space too, right?
Yeah, she does counseling and therapy, and she's here on Monday and Tuesday evenings, and then all day on Thursday.
Right on. So yeah, if anybody's interested in those type of services, they can reach out for more information. And I guess we also have a book club here too on Wednesdays, right?
Yeah, Wednesday nights at 5.
And we just finished Matt Kahn's Whenever Arises, love that. And we took turns reading, and then, if there was a healing mantra in there, we'd all say it together. I think the whole group really enjoyed that. And before that, we did an older book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And now we're at an interesting place. It's today we're recording this November 13th. So our next one, we're all going to bring in material and decide what we're going to do next. And we might even take rotating turns, right, of who gets to share material. So we might not jump into a whole book right away. We'll have to figure it out. So everyone's welcome for that as well, right?
Yeah, just kind of a meeting of the minds and sharing different things. I know one time in the past we took a break and we watched Dr. Wayne Dyer's a movie that he had made, and just whatever we want to share and discuss and see how it affects us.
Yeah. And also the other thing I guess I want to mention is if any practitioners out there who would like to lead retreats or events or workshops, that's a potential that's available if you reach out to Lisa and see if it resonates with her and what she's doing. It might be a possibility. So that's maybe another potential for some folks, right?
Yeah. Right now the timing, as I'm subleasing it, is more Friday evenings or weekends, something like that.
So, well, I think we might as well wrap it up here. Do you want to leave folks with how they can get in contact with you and maybe check out the space virtually and in real life?
Sure. So my Gmail is fatcatlongevity@gmail.com. My telephone number is 314-323-6431. And I prefer text because I can check a text, especially during the day, quicker and easier. Just for an introduction, I'm located at Mary's House of Healing on Main Street in St. Charles. The space has amazing energy and just is so beautiful. And I have more availability on weekends. So availability is by appointment. I usually try to come in between and be around here on Saturday mornings. But working full time, I usually set up appointments for anything set.
Well, right on. And that's in Missouri, by the way, for anyone
Yes.
listening outside the state. And it's in the kind of the St. Louis area, so it's close. St. Charles is in the St. Louis area, greater St. Louis area, I guess. Yeah. All right, Lisa. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad we finally got a chance to sit down and do this. Thanks for joining.
Great. I always love listening to them. Thanks.